11 of Qore, presented by the PlayStation Network. Right now, we're in beautiful Seattle, Washington, to visit Titan Studios, who are working on Fat Princess for the PlayStation Network.
We have the princess!
With most of the heavy lifting completed, we check out the finishing touches of this comic medieval multiplayer exclusive. We also have a Qore exclusive Fat Princess theme. In our lead feature, we focus on the amazing music being scored for the epic open-world game Infamous. We take you behind the scenes as they explain their collaborative and unconventional approach to this promising PS3 exclusive. Speaking of exclusives, independent games are truly blossoming across the PlayStation Network, and we showcase the state-of-the-art of these innovative interactive experiences. And subscribers can enjoy the full download of Lingering Shadows, courtesy of Sony's Santa Monica Studios. Next stop, the harsh and unforgiving surface of Mars, the setting for Red Faction Guerrilla. You'll learn all about the awesome destruction and havoc you can wreak on your enemies from our friends at Volition. They were even so kind to throw in early access to the Red Faction Guerrilla demo to our annual subscribers. Finally, Audrey Cleo brings you the latest Blu-ray releases in the What's Hot section, where you'll also find a few other goodies. So jump right in, I'll see you on the inside. Where in the gaming universe do a city in ruins and award-winning composers meet? The one and only Infamous, coming soon to the PS3. The creators of the game went all out to get some of the biggest names in the music industry to do justice to the cinematic and epic fictional world. Infamous is an open-world action-adventure that follows the exploits of an unwittingly notorious Cole McGrath. At the onset, McGrath is a bike messenger at the center of a deadly explosion that gifts him with supernatural electric powers. The open-ended plot structure required a multitude of tones and emotions that demanded an unusual approach.
Developing the musical plan for Infamous was a real challenge right from the start. We went into the project with everyone telling us they wanted to do something really unique and really different. So then we really started talking about taking things that weren't instruments and using them as the percussion basis for this score. We recorded cars being crushed. We roamed through a junkyard and hit things with baseball bats and drumsticks. We were excited about the prospect of doing some of the percussion in-house and sharing it with other artists that would maybe treat it sort of in an electronic kind of remix way to really darken it and bring it into this infamous world of Empire City. So at the time we were listening to a lot of different music, and Amon Tobin's music kept coming up.
World-famous electronic music artist Amon Tobin became an integral link in the chain of collaborators.
I was very excited to hear that I would be working with Amon Tobin. He's a legend, really. I mean, he's so young, but so well known for what he does.
He stands out from the rest in that it's very, very dramatic, and it feels like a narrative or a storytelling is taking place.
I started doing themes for the different gangs that are in the world of Infamous, and Mom would take them and process them, and it's very exciting because he took them to places I would have never gone. And the same way, like, he would give me pieces and I would write on top of them, and he had no intention melodically of where some of these things were going, so I got to take my stance on his stuff and his on mine.
At that point, it all just kind of came together.
Collaborative project I've ever worked on. So as a result, any single piece of music may have 2, 3, 4 artists who have touched it and contributed to it in some way.
The music of world-renowned and prolific cellist Martin Tillman brought a layer of sophistication to the unusual soundtrack.
With Jim, We discussed, should we listen before? And I said, you know what? Let's just jump into it. I get brought in to embellish, to add some pepper to the steak, to respond very intuitively. And I think that really works also for a game.
We're all big gamers ourselves. And one of the things I hate more than anything in the world in a video game is having a certain battle or a certain scene in the game that's scored with one piece of music that just loops over and over again, and I keep dying and starting over, and I'm like, oh my gosh, and you know, the net result of that is probably someone turning the music off, which for us is the absolute worst possible thing in the world that could happen. So what we try to do is we, even when we're scripting very specific aspects of the game with music, we still try to work with the programmers so that there maybe is a playlist instead of a piece of music that could encompass that experience.
The music now in gaming is at such a high level. 20 years ago, you didn't have anything else except a couple of beeping digital noises.
Now with having the PlayStation 3, those limitations have really kind of gone away. It's more like, what do you want to do? And we'll write the code to make it work because it's a very powerful system.
If you're looking to zen out a little bit, that game company, yep, that's their name, has just the game for you. Taking what they learned from their previous hit Flow, Flower is basically a calming escape from the harsh world outside. It's truly a unique and calming experience that must be tried to fully understand.
Flower is one of the most beautiful games I've probably ever seen. How did you guys come up with the concept?
To come with the concept of Flower is actually a very difficult and iterative process. As an urban man who grew up in the city, you know, nature has this magical grasp on me. It's kind of like how you feel when you go to the ocean. That force of nature is really magical. So I was thinking about, is it possible to create an interactive experience that capture the power of nature and expose the usually ignored, you know, detailed beauty on flowers? So as we develop the prototype, we kind of shift the concept into something that incorporates the urban life and the nature to reach the harmony between the two.
Is there a story behind this game? What would you consider to be the underlying message?
The game happens in a series of flowers, which is in a very ghetto apartment in, you know, it could be New York, could be Shanghai. And each flower have a different view of the city. You know, some of the flower will see the colorless and lifelessness of the city. You know, the concrete, the gray sky, the gray buildings. So in his dream, he wants to see color come back to the city. Other flowers might want to see light coming back to the darkness, or peace coming to the very stressful city. So each of flower have a different perspective. I think the appeal of flower has many different aspects. You know, for people who just getting tired of the stressful games, they wanted to see something new, and definitely Flower is a very fresh and unique experience for them.
What's next for that game company? How do you guys follow up a game like Flower?
The inspirations I have come from the frustration living in a city. And definitely, I think in the future I'll be making games that reflect how I feel as an urban man. But I can't give you too much detail right now. But definitely it will be something we all share and we feel, and hopefully those games can release some of the tensions that you have.
You can say a lot of things about Linger in Shadows, but whatever you do, don't call it a game. It's more of a tech demo with roots in the demo scene than anything else. Like any masterpiece, this title demands a closer look before you get a sense of what's going on and how to interpret its meaning.
Linger in Shadows, it's not really meant to be a game. How would you describe it?
We've always described it as interactive digital art. You know, it is not a game. It's experimenting with visuals. It has its own story and symbology embedded into it, which, like any piece of art, you leave it up to people to interpret. But that's very much what it's about.
Now, I read that it kind of sprouted out of the demo scene. Can you tell us a little bit more about that and where it came from?
Demo scene's been around over 20 years. It's a collective, normally, of artists, musicians, and programmers get together and push the hardware of whatever they're working on to the limit. You always see more and more spectacular things come out of it. Previously, they've been very passive experiences, and actually letting you look around and explore into it, manipulate things is a new concept to the demo scene.
So there's two modes when you start up the game. There's watch and linger mode. What's the difference between the two?
Watch is a purely passive experience. You can let it run through and take a look at a lot of the stuff, but you don't find everything, you don't see everything that's hidden in there. Linger is part of going through that experience and exploring and playing around with it and finding things that otherwise you wouldn't see there. You know, the idea of shaking the controller to rip through to almost like this alternate sequence that ties back into the overall narrative. You know, some of it, you know, each one is part of a symbol, and they actually have some information about it when you unlock the trophy. The idea of, you know, go forward and back through time with it was to allow you the opportunity to just go to places and look around and, you know, find some of the hidden things buried in there, as opposed to you get one shot and that's it. With the experiments that we've been doing and trying to be on that edge of unique experience and different experiences, it's one of the things that personally I feel is really healthy for the industry. Here, you know, in some regards, we're looking to the future. We're hoping to find the next Sid Meier, the next Warren Spector, you know, the next Miyamoto. But also, we're winding back the clock 15 years. We're a small team, creativity, risk, without the threat of burning down your company. PlayStation Network allows us to bring these small experiments and experiences to a broader public. You make them aware of it. You know, they go in, download, take a look. That's what PSN's about. We want to bring people unique, different experiences that you can't get anywhere else.
Pixel Junk Eden is basically grassroots gardening with a nightclub twist. You'll be instantly hooked as you spread the life-giving pollen that makes the futuristic garden grow, all to a sleek electronica soundtrack.
Pixel Junk Eden is very stylish and refined, yet also kind of cute and fun. How do you guys define the style of the game, and how do you walk that line?
Well, the interesting thing about it, we had a hard time coming up with, you know, a small, compact description for it. We kind of called it a psychedelic organic platformer for a while.
Yeah, I can see that, yeah.
And then kind of Flower came onto the scene, and they're kind of taking the organic throne now. So we're kind of just abstract psychedelic platformer, I think we're sticking with.
There's this techno music, kind of electronica vibe that goes throughout the game. How do you think the music combined with the sound effects changes the feel of the whole thing and kind of adds to it?
Well, the audio is definitely an important part of it. The Japanese artist Bayon was actually the creator of a lot of the abstract visual aspects, the look and the feel of the plants, as well as the composer and the creator of all of the music. So they work together very well.
What's your main objective? What are you trying to accomplish in the game?
The character that you play is called a Grimp, and he's called that because he grips and he jumps. Grimps live in a garden, and it's actually kind of the front menu system, and that's the home of the Grimp. That's their garden. Every garden that you travel off to, you want to collect the spectra. The spectra are 5 special items that are placed throughout the different gardens. And when you collect them and bring them back to your garden grows with new and unique plants that actually kind of help you access the other gardens. It's an organic feeling. It's just kind of ethereal. You're spinning and jumping and flying through the air and climbing on plants, and you're trying to gather and grow things. And it really doesn't have a definition, but it definitely has a great feel to it that everyone can immediately get.
There have already been several PSN titles under that Pixel Junk umbrella. What's next for you guys?
Well, we have 2 more in the first series of Pixel Junk coming down the road, and I can't really say their names just yet, but I have taken a look at what's coming next, and again, completely unique, different than any of the others, but as amazing and fun as all of the Pixel Junk series titles have been so far. I don't know how they do it at Q Games, but they keep doing it, and I'm just thrilled to be associated with these titles, actually.
Developed solely by WizKid Jonathan Mack, the award-winning indie game Everyday Shooter seems like a surprisingly simple take on the 8-bit shooters of yore. But what starts out simple enough turns into a surreal battle against creepy eyeballs and other bizarre shapes. Amazing what a little time and imagination can accomplish.
What kind of background do you need to make a game like that?
Well, I mean, it gets down to a couple different things. John has always had a passion for programming, and he had ideas that he wanted to run with, and he just kind of went from there. I mean, there were a lot of things where he built something, tried it out, no, hate it, next, and just kept going and going and going until he really derived down to what became Everyday Shooter.
Now, is he an artist? Does he have a background in art or music or anything like that?
He has a background as a coder, first and foremost. I mean, music side, and learned the guitar recently while he was working on the project, so coming up with the way it sounds, making it feedback properly in terms of notes combining and riffs and harmonizing into the experience is one of the surprising things. You know, he just has a good understanding, and he, you know, tying into being a coder in math, he's got a fascination with simplistic geometry. What John was trying to do is, it's an album of shooters, and he's always described it like that. Like, every song is different, each level is different. As the levels change, depending on which one, it's part of the feedback loop into how well you're doing. You take a look at the very first level, and if you've gone for a long time and you're doing well, the actions on the background get more and more extreme and brighter and feedback in.
What would you expect from an auteur like Jonathan Mack in the future?
I definitely expect to see John going further and further in his career, developing more and more very unique experiences. And he's going to stay in that space of very different and unique. You know, he's not going to go out there and make a blockbuster. He wants to make something fun and different, and something he likes and he hopes other people like as well.
We journeyed to the beautiful city of Seattle, Washington to visit the creative masterminds at Titan Studios. They're working on a new title for the PlayStation Network called Fat Princess, which we've been not so patiently waiting for since we first saw it at E3.
The Legend of the Fat Princess.
Fat Princess is one of those games that's just completely irreverent. It doesn't take itself too seriously. It's very charming just in the sense of its art style alone, the gameplay, the ability to play with 32 players and voice chat so you can hear each other talking, and really just having a lot of fun with the game.
I'm here with Chris Miller, who's the producer of Fat Princess. Now, I have to ask right off the bat, Fat Princess? How'd you guys come up with that one?
Well, we came up with Fat Princess when we're developing the concept of the castle siege and the armies battling against each other to get into the enemy's castle. Unfortunately, though, the enemy has taken your princess and been feeding her cake and making her a little bit more difficult for you to capture.
The game looks very unique. How did you guys come up with that art style?
When we started developing the concept, our concept artist started thinking about different ideas and design and how this game was going to come together, and she drew an immediate image of a castle siege, which really just sang to the whole concept of the idea. And when we looked at it, we kind of knew that we wanted to do something different, and just the painted style and the cartoon look just really gelled with what we wanted to do. And we also wanted to have a lot of fun with the game, but it's a good juxtaposition between the cute kind of cartoon anime style with also kind of the blood and guts when you get a good successful kill on somebody else in a multiplayer game.
We have captured an outpost.
I heard that you didn't really like the gory, bloody parts at first. Was it weird to have to draw this kind of violent but cute game at the same time?
Well, at the beginning, I didn't really like because I think it's too much blood. But I also kind of like the idea. It's kind of twisted because like when you look at the game, you're like, oh, it's so cute. But then suddenly you see everybody killing everybody and there's blood everywhere. And I think it's kind of cool.
Let the slaughter begin!
Fat Princess certainly looks fantastic, but how does it play? With 32 player support, unique character classes, and much more, we were certainly impressed with the multiplayer tech Titan had developed.
So basically what I'm participating in is a 32-player online game with friends and with people I've never met before. And what we're doing is we're trying to capture our princess and bring her back to our castle so we can win the capture the flag scenario. So the idea here is feed the enemy princess, make sure it's a little bit harder for the enemies to capture her back, but they're going to be doing the same thing. So you have to get a bunch of your friends, coordinate over voice chat, which really makes team play a lot better. And you can get 5 of your friends to bring the princess back. And so that's kind of how you win the game.
So what different character classes make up your team here?
So we have 5 different character classes if you don't include the villager, which is the base class. You can be a worker, you can be a swordsman, warrior, you can be a ranger, which is your archer class. You can be a mage, which is a fire and ice mage, or you can be a support class of the priest, where you go around healing people. But the way you actually select classes is not before game, but in game. So you pick up a hat anywhere from your own castle, or you can pick up a hat up in the battlefield as well. So you can pick up enemy hats, and you can change it anytime.
I've heard whisperings of Operation Eagle Drop. Can you explain that a little bit?
It's actually become one of our best, most well-known team strategies. Basically, you build the spring bucket, which is like a catapult. You get a bunch of your friends, you get them armored up, you get them with bombs, and you launch yourself into the enemy castle. And mayhem ensues as you throw the bombs, and gibs and gore and blood everywhere.
And the best part about Fat Princess is that it combines 2 of my favorite things, PvP and cake.
The backbone of Mars is its workforce. Its strength is the EDF. The EDF is committed to your well-being.
The Earth Defense Force changed the face of Mars. They terraformed so we could breathe the air. They built bases, checkpoints, watchtowers. The Liberators soon became an occupying force. And now they killed my brother.
Red Faction Guerrilla is an open-world shooter on the surface of Mars where you can destroy everything. The people of Mars are oppressed by the Earth Defense Force. They have to fight back using any means possible. The Earth Defense Force has money, they've got weapons, they've got training. People of Mars don't really have a whole lot, so they have to use the tools of their trade, sledgehammers, mining explosives. They make anything they can that'll give them an advantage against the EDF. It's not a fair fight by any means.
For Red Faction Guerrilla's artistic development, we took tons of inspiration from the photos and videos that we could find of Mars. We made our version of Mars somewhat terraformed, and it becomes more terraformed as you progress through the game.
We've got areas with snow and ice. We've got areas where you'll see some green and some plants. It's Mars 2.0. We looked back to Red Faction 1 more than anything else. So there was this definite revolution theme, and we wanted to get back to our roots of the Red Faction series. So you've got the same kind of feeling. You've got the people being oppressed by the man, only the man is now the Earth Defense Force. They've been on Mars long enough that they've turned bad. Red Faction 1 really pushed the hardware at the time, and we didn't want to do a sequel until the hardware had advanced enough that we could do something really, really impressive.
With the PS3, we have pushed all of the processors, all of the SPUs to their limit, which has allowed us to do full destruction on every building in the game. Every structure, every piece of clutter and prop, vehicles, everything in the game is destructible.
We started out in first person. Both the previous Red Faction games were first person. But when we had this level of destruction, we found that people were dying a lot. And when we pulled the camera back, you can see the debris like falling around your character now. When a building is under stress, you can see little bits start to come down, and it's a lot easier to understand your situation in third person. The destruction is fun by itself. I've been on this project for 5 years now, and people always say, well, surely the destruction gets old, and the answer is no, the destruction doesn't get old. It's really fun.
Destructible environments add a level of gameplay and a type of gameplay that people just haven't seen before. Coming from the history of Red Faction 1 and 2, where destruction was a big part of the gameplay, we had to push it even further for Red Faction Guerrilla.
The destruction in Red Faction Guerrilla really relates to the guerrilla tactics that the player can use. If you can think of a way to beat the enemy, it probably will work. We've had testers do things like they put remote charges all over a vehicle, they jump the vehicle off the cliff vertically right into the top of the building, it tears a huge hole, and then they detonate it.
If I had to pick one word that really summarizes what Red Faction Guerrilla gameplay is all about, it's the destruction. You know, people are gonna have a ton of fun blowing stuff up in Red Faction Guerrilla. After 4 or 5 years, depending on the team member, we still can't get enough of it here. I could spend hours blowing stuff up and just watching to see what's going to happen next.